Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And just a little production note for you. So you'll be hearing this episode a week after the last episode, which featured our guest Molly. This episode was both recorded on the same night.
Well, if things take a turn, it's because this is our second recording of the night. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, we had a few weeks where we missed recording. Things just didn't come together, and we normally have 3 or 4 episodes in the bank, but our bank was getting very low. So we thought, well, let's top up this bank by recording 2 tonight. So I was available, Joy was available, so we thought, let's do it. So if it starts getting wild and wacky, 45 minutes from now, you'll know why.
I don't know. The first episode got wild and wacky 5 minutes in, so this might be something. There's a lot of talk about aliens in the last episode.
well, there we are. Well, I tell you what, at the very top of this episode, let's go into music news. Okay. So this is something that a lot of people on the internet are talking about. Certainly YouTube channels that I follow, bloggers that I follow, people on Facebook and all that kind of stuff are talking about this. So I thought I would join those folks talking about this. So I would like to talk about the Van Halen box set. I
have seen that as a hot topic.
Yeah.
On all the things. So
for many years, the Van Halen or Van Hagar years, should I say, the Sammy Hagar years of Van Halen sort of fell off the radar a bit. They got back together with Dave. So when they were the last lot of gigs they did were all done with David Lee Roth. And certainly rock radio around here pretty much only plays the David Lee Roth era. But I've always been a big fan of the Sammy Hagar era of Van Halen. But there's nothing was ever really reissued. I mean, and I think some of the CDs were even hard to find, and certainly vinyl reissues have never happened.
Yeah.
So the fact that they've come out with this vinyl box set and CD box set of the Sammy Hagar years of Van Halen was very exciting for a lot of people. So, because it was my birthday, I asked for the vinyl set and the CD set. Now, I'm not really into buying records anymore. I very rarely buy them because it's such a crapshoot and you never know what you're going to get and the quality and all the things we've discussed many times.
Yeah.
But being a collector and wanting to own foreign local kind of knowledge and balance on vinyl because they're so stinking rare, I asked for the box set. So I got the box set for my birthday. Actually came the day after my birthday. Mm-hmm. And somewhere in the logistics chain, it was dropped. So when I opened it up, all the records were in absolute pristine condition and they sound great. The pressings are really good quality. The records are not warped. The holes are in the right place. All the stuff that you would expect from a premium product like that. But
the holes are in the right place.
Yeah, sometimes they put the holes in the wrong place and then the record plays weird.
I know, it's just a very specific thing, Tim. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So they all sound fantastic. However, because my box set was dropped, all of the inner sleeves were torn around the edges.
This is why this can't be love.
That's correct. Tim? That is correct. They should have cracked. They shouldn't have cracked the 7th seal. If you know that Van Halen track.
I do.
Yeah.
This is not what dreams are made of. Okay, we'll be here all week.
I think you should just get up.
Was this the best of both worlds? I think
it could have been. I mean, it could have been happening on a summer night.
Okay, well, me and Tim will stop with the weird nerd music puns. But anyway, I'm very sad to hear that happen. But at least this one didn't cost you like your kidney, right?
No, it was like $100 or something. It's 5 records. But our friends at Amazon made it right by sending me a replacement, and they sent me a replacement set, and it was basically flawless. So I'd already listened to the records from the first set and knew they were perfect. I didn't want to proof listen to all the others. So I put the records I'd listened to that are perfect into the sleeves from the new set, and then everything is fine and dandy. And I've now got a really nice set of records. But I was very pleased with it. As I said, buying new records is really rough. You never know what you're going to get. These have been pressed in the Czech Republic, and whoever did the pressing did a really good job. They sound great, all that kind of good stuff. Now, the only thing is that they're remastered. They're not remixed. And what that means is when you remix something, you go back to the original tapes and then you adjust the levels of the guitar, the bass, the drums, effects, all that kind of stuff. When you remaster something, you take the finished product and then you apply compression, you apply EQ, and that kind of stuff, limiting depending on how you're going to do it. And they've gone back to that stage and they've remastered them for vinyl and for CD. If I'm being really honest, certainly I've only listened to the vinyl sets so far. I haven't listened to the CD sets. They don't sound super significantly different to the versions I've been listening to for years. I
mean, I have to say, Tim, when you were going through all of that, I was trying my hardest to figure out a black and blue pun, but I couldn't come up with nothing. Like how you went black and blue to get there. But I got nothing, everybody. But I mean, that's good. At least you got your money's worth, and it sounds like they made it right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I said I'm very interested to dig into the CD set because that's my favorite medium. But some things I want to have on a record because I'm a collector as well as a connoisseur of listening to the music. Yeah. But I've played a few of the CDs through just to check they're okay, and they sound really, really good. But I don't know if it's night and day difference to the originals I have.
I mean, it is. Yeah, it is what it is. It's just kind of cool to say, you're part of this world, and I think you're right. Though I do think that Hagar just I don't know, he just gets forgotten.
He does. I mean, I discovered Van Halen with Sammy Hagar on lead vocals, and we've spoken about many times. It was the MTV Music Video Awards. I think it was 91 when they opened it with Pound Cake. And that's the first time I ever saw Van Halen. I didn't have a lot of exposure to that kind of music growing up. And I really loved the Sammy era. And then I went back and discovered the Dave era. But I just prefer the Sammy era.
I think I'm with you on this one because I've been thinking about this because, to be honest, it's not something I think about until we do this podcast. But when I think of with Tim, I mean, we've talked about this band 1,000 times. Like Van Halen comes up all the time. And I feel like the first song that comes to mind when I think of Van Halen is always Jump. Mm-hmm. Always Jump. And to Glee's credit, it's partially because of that stupid episode with the mattresses where they were jumping, doing their version of it. It's a dumb episode. It's really dumb. But they're literally jumping on mattresses because they were trying to make money. It's a whole thing, and the song Jump is playing. So that's partially part. But I mean, even if I'm not thinking of that, then I go for Hot for Teacher, right? Or Running with the Devil. And so those tend to be in the Sammy realm. It's not to discredit Daily Roth by any stretch, but I will say the more I've thought about it, the more Tim's brought it up. Those are the songs that I think of when I think of Van Halen. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, for me, my favorite Van Halen album is For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. Yeah. It opens with Pound Cake, Pleasure Dome is on there, Run Around, Top of the World. And I said that is the album I discovered the band with, and I love it so much. And in fact, when I cracked open the vinyl box set, the first thing I put on was For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge.
That doesn't surprise me. I mean, also, though this song is not about Tim because he can totally drive 55. Joy cannot drive 55. I made it, what was it? One time, Jillian, one of our listeners, Jilbo, was talking. She was telling me and Tim we should go on a road trip to Tennessee so we could go see all the Dolly stuff. And she said, how long would it take you to get there? And I was like, depends on which one of us is driving. If Joy's driving, we might get there about 30 minutes before. Tim's driving, it's up for debate.
Well, it's I-81 South almost exactly the whole way. And it goes between 65 and 70. I think it's 70 up to the Tennessee line, and then it becomes 65 from there on. So I get in that inside lane, get to 65 or 70 and hit my cruise control, and I'm very happy.
I mean, to be fair, I probably would in those situations. I can't drive 55. The interstates in America have dropped at 55 for years, probably since the 70s, 80s.
Well, the whole the 55 thing was to save fuel during the 70s gas crisis.
I do, and I think it's because you've said it before. But yes, I don't know that I knew that, but I think it's been brought up. But it makes sense. I mean, I guess, but it also just seems like a good way for police to be able to make a lot of tickets.
Exactly. I mean, some states is 65, some 70. I've seen out west some is like 75 or 80 even.
Utah's got crazy. Some of those areas are up to 80, and they shouldn't be because they're 5 lanes. I drive faster than Tim because I make jokes because Tim's very to the book and I'm not. But with that being said, there's some states I don't agree with that. I also don't know how I would do like in an Autobahn situation. I don't know how I would handle that.
Well, I've driven on the Autobahn in my own car, but I was driving a Skoda, which is not a very fast car. And that. I was, flat on the floor with like about 95
no Lamborghini,
Skoda.
No Lamborghini for you, no Bugatti going through there.
No. I was just going as fast as I could because you can, and it's the Autobahn. But there was one time many, many years ago, I was in an Audi with my uncle who used to live in Germany. Yeah. And he was I think he's all in kilometers per hour, so I can't remember, but it was something along the lines of 100 miles an hour, 110 miles an hour, something like that. He's going pretty quick in this Audi. And then this Mercedes went past us. So I don't know how quick that car was going.
God. I mean, it really just depends on, I guess, how quickly because that's the thing, though. It's like, yes, all cars can go up to a certain speed, but it's how quickly they can pick up the speed, right, Tim? Like they can go from 0 to 60. It's really what makes the difference. Not that this is a car podcast by any stretch.
No, absolutely not. Okay, so that was my thoughts on the Van Halen Van Hagar box set, which a lot of people are talking about. How did we go from
that to the Autobahn? But anyway.
Now, I understand that Joy had a very special concert that she went to very recently, and you have some news for us from this concert. Is that correct?
Correct. So, from the moment this concert became available in our area, and as we and Tim have talked about at length on this podcast, we don't get a lot of great artists within an hour of us. This is about a 40-minute drive from my house. So that was very exciting to begin. Usually, if we want to go to a concert, we're looking anywhere from 2 to 3 hours from our house. You might have to get a hotel, depending on how late it is, or drive through the night, and nobody wants to do that. Have to sleep after a concert, right? So this is a very exciting moment for me. Those who know, year before last, actually, I went to the DNA World Tour of the Backstreet Boys with my best friend, Molly, who was on the episode not too long ago. So I have seen the Backstreet Boys live. That was a big one for me because I never got to see them as a kid. Love me the Backstreet Boys. I was always team Backstreet Boys. I was NSYNC's okay, but through and through, I'm a Backstreet Boys girl. My first crush, I can remember distinctly in elementary school, was Nick Carter. I loved Nick Carter. He was the guy that all the Backstreet Boys. I mean, Howie's great. Brian Littrell's fine, but I was the Nick Carter girl. That was my thing. So Nick Carter came to Roanoke, which is about 40 minutes from us, give or take, whatever. And my friend Whitney and me had been debating on going. And Tim had sent it to me too, and then Molly sent it to me, and Jennifer had sent it to me. Everybody I know had sent it to me saying, let's go. I kind of put it off. And then we had been trying to record the same episode like 6 different times. It's a whole thing. And I was like, okay, Molly, Tim, I want to go to this concert, but I'm on the fence. And I was like, do I go or do we record the episode tonight? They're both like, go. So my friend Whitney agreed to drive, and she bought our lunch or our dinner and our drinks while we were there. It was just ginger ale, everybody. It wasn't anything fancy, but I paid for the tickets. The tickets were pretty cheap. It was $50 for each of us. It ended up being $110 USD. That's for 2 tickets. Not bad. So I get there, and it was actually, I didn't do any research whatsoever. And Tim talked about this, and I thought it was kind of fun. I tend to be the person, and I know Tim is, we'll look at the set list, we'll read the artists, we'll try to figure out what we're goading ourselves into when we go to a concert. I didn't do any of this because, like I said, all very last moment. The concert was at 7 p.m. I bought the tickets at 3 p.m. Like, that's how last moment it was. It was a very small venue, though, so it really didn't matter where you were. Like, it honestly didn't matter. And it was a Wednesday night, so, like, half the seats were empty. I think that most of the people who bought tickets didn't even end up going. Like, there was probably 50 empty seats in front of us. So anyway, which is fine. I loved it because it made it available for us to move up, and see all the things. But and Tim says he's seen some people in this venue before, and it is a cute little venue. But anyway, so Nick Carter came to Roanoke. I didn't do any research. So what he said, though, I did some research as I was waiting for the episode, stuck a podcast, waiting for the show to start. This was his kind of like personal, I want to do what I grew up on. So he focused on music that was popular on MTV for the first half of the episode. And then second half, dang it, Tim. First half of the podcast. Second second half, it was more Backstreet Boys, and he did a few original songs and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I really didn't know I was getting into just 80s hits. That's pretty much what 90% of it was, which was really exciting. So during this, I was kind of writing Tim, and I made Tim I was trying to find, they had the worst Wi-Fi in this building, Tim. And as soon as I walked into it, it was like my phone died. So I was writing Tim a little bit. I was like, I need you to research who this guitarist is, because he looked very familiar to me. Turns out Tim looked him up, and he had worked with like Don Henley, Chris Cottrell. Who else was the other one? Melissa Etheridge.
That's the one, yeah.
Which is funny because they played a few Eagles songs, Don Henley songs, whatever. And so I was like, oh, that checks. But I had never in a million years thought I was going to hear Nick Carter sing "You Shook Me All Night Long." It was good, but it was very weird. And it's kind of infancy. It was just very a weird thing to see. It was a great concert, though. I spoke a lot. I sent Tim the kind of the set list after the fact, because I was like, this is such a weird set list that I was not expecting at all. So he did open with like Larger Than Life, which was by the Backstreet Boys. And then I remember he sang Private Eyes, which for some reason got stuck in my brain for a very long time. Sunglasses at Night was another one that he sang. Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Mm-hmm. Dirty Laundry, Don Henley, of course.
Yeah.
That was kind of cool too, because the guitarist that Tim told me a little bit about, his name is
Pete Thorne.
That was it. He like had like a real kind of cool breakdown in that, and so when it was doing the like, it was very intense the way they did it, and so that was probably one of my favorite songs of the night. Obviously, he did "Wanted Dead or Alive," which I thought was really random. It wasn't expected. They did "Sharp Dressed Man." So for those who don't know, Nick Carter does play the guitar. I used to play the guitar in parentheses for those who can't see, because multiple times, Tim, they put a guitar on him, but was he physically playing it?
Well, it's that Elvis thing, isn't it? It's like when Elvis stood at the front, he was just a singer. You put a guitar around his neck, he becomes part of the band.
He could play it, because there was one part where they did Sharp Dressed Man. And if you're on my Facebook, like if you're an actual Facebook friend of me, and maybe we'll use this as something to put, I'll use this video, Tim, and put it on the Facebook for everybody. Mm-hmm. They do the famous, like, where all three of them are playing together and they're moving the guitar simultaneously with the Sharp Dressed Man thing. Mm-hmm. I think he can play, but I think that there was so much going on. To his credit, I don't know that he's a guitarist first. I think he's a vocalist first, and He knows how to play some, like he can mull around on the guitar. It was just funny because I looked over at my friend Whitney after they had put the guitar on him. I want to say it was during Wanted Dead or Alive. They put the guitar on him, and I kept waiting, and I'm like, has he played one chord on that thing? She was like, I don't think he has. And I was like, and then at some point he did, but it was just really funny because I was just like, I probably would have just skipped it. It was kind of a cool looking guitar. It was green. I don't know what brand it was, Tim. You would have known, but Tim specifically found the guitarist that was playing with him because he looked up his amp and his guitar brand to find him.
Well, it's a Suhr amp and a Suhr guitar, and it's a very premium brand, so it wasn't hard to find him once I found that.
Of course. But with that being said, it was a great concert. It was fun. I thought it was really interesting that there were so many different age ranges. There was people there in their 90s to people there as young kids. You know what I mean, Tim? That was really cool to see, and I saw everybody really excited. Like I said, I never expected to hear Nick Carter of all these people sing it. It was a great concert. Really enjoyed it. It lasted way longer than I was expecting on a Wednesday night, which made for a very sleepy day when I finally got home the next day.
Yes.
And then, of course, he ended it with all of his best Backstreet Boys songs, which were near and dear to my heart. But this is the kicker, everybody, and this is why this is so important. Tim knows where this statement is going. I posted a little, I did a really good photo of Nick, and I kind of zoomed in, got him sitting there in his little jacket with his little Nick thing, and I posted it on Instagram. And then if you swiped over, it was a selfie of me and my friend Whitney that we went. And on said post, I wrote, "Hi, Nick Carter." And then I just kind of put like a hanging out with Nick Carter on a Wednesday night, kind of like keeping it low key. Well, Nick Carter, the real Nick Carter with the blue check mark and everything, guys, wrote. Well, I mean, I don't think he wrote it. It was just an emoji, but it was a wavy hand back to me. Because I said, "Hi, Nick Carter, the Nick Carter of the Backstreet Boys, of my literal crush when I was 6 years old, of everything I've talked about on this podcast." It all came full circle. He responded to me on Instagram. I'm just saying, like, I am now that person who has in some way got a response. I mean, Tim may have gotten one out of Brian May, but it's fine. This is my moment. We're not going to talk about that.
Joy, I want you to have this moment and run with this moment. I mean, I've interacted with a few people. I got a message back from Carrie Fisher one time on Twitter, Brian May on Twitter when he used to do that, Steve Lukather. There's been a few others, and there was also Dwight Yoakam liked something of mine on Instagram that was really random. It was something like a cat picture or a trip that we went on to a cheesecake factory, and it had a like on it, and it said Dwight Yoakam liked this picture. I was like, what?
So I've had a few of those things happen. So the bass player, Jeff Howard, for the Used, liked my picture that I took at a Used concert. Glozell, who is a YouTuber that I used to follow, she liked a few of my comments. And then there was this, I had a weird country star was that I can't think of, their son liked my thing. I can't remember who it was, but it's basically your version of Dwight Yoakam. I'm like, who is this? But the funny part about the Nick Carter thing was, Tim, when I saw it pop up while I was working, I saw it and I assumed it was a fake account. Mm-hmm. Like, I saw it and I was like, whatever. And then after I got off of work, me and Charlie ran to the local Kroger's grocery store. It doesn't have an S, so I was just making a joke. Tim probably got it, but the Kroger. And I was scrolling through my phone and I like happened to open it up and I looked and I was like, wait a second. That's not fake. It's not fake. And I had tagged my friend Whitney in it. Gosh, I've hit my camera so many times telling this story. That's how excited I am, everybody. But I had tagged my friend Whitney in the photo of me and her as selfies, right? And she was like, so I wrote her and I was like, oh my God, did you? And she was like, yeah, I was waiting for you to see it, Joy. You hadn't said anything yet. I was trying to wait. And I was like, I thought it was fake. Like, I just thought, you know what I mean, Tim? I assumed it was a fake Nick Carter. And what's funny, though, for all our No Name Music Cast friends, I responded and said, thanks, great concert. I've had Private Eye stuck in my head ever since. And then I went back on the No Name Music Cast Instagram and liked Nick Carter's comment. And maybe it'll bring him to the podcast.
Well, you never know. I mean, however you think it's going to work, maybe you have to try that.
Debatable, but we're going to try. I would be really sad if I find out it was just like one of, well, he says that this concert was, he's been a Backstreet Boy for a long time. And this was kind of, he picked smaller venues, Tim, specifically to try to do like a more like get to know people, homie type thing. Mm-hmm. So I imagine that's probably why he was like looking at what people were actually posting. He says that was his goal with this concert. And I want to, from what I've heard about him, and I know this is not always true. We all have our illusions of our people that we love. But I've heard he's actually a really nice guy. And like if you go talk to him and stuff, he seems to be a very nice, charismatic person. So I'm thinking that was kind of his goal with this. And so by me posting and liking, I'm sure and like I said, there was only like 100 people in that venue total, right? Mm-hmm. There wasn't that many people posting from that night. So he was probably looking through all the posts and mine popped up because I did tag him in it when I wrote like, hi, Nick Carter, like I added his name. So like I directly sent it to him. I mean, it is what it is. But I have now been the person who has directly interacted with Nick Carter. I'm basically a member of Backstreet Boys. I will remember all of you guys one day when I obviously get swept away to join one of their concert tours. I don't know how I'll fit in, but I'll figure it out. I will, maybe they'll put me selling T-shirts. It's whatever, but I'll remember you. I'll remember you all fondly.
Well, thank you. Well, as you ascend into this lofty part of the world now, as a inner person of the Backstreet Boys, I'm glad that you'll have a little bit of time for us.
I mean, I don't think I can be a Backstreet Boy because there's some logistic problems in that statement, but maybe they'll let me do a version of Keep Playing Games with My Heart or something as an intro to their concert. You know, that's all I'm asking.
It could be. You could be in backing vocals. You could be duetting with them. You could be opening the show. There's so many options for you.
The world is my oyster.
It is indeed.
All right, Tim, I guess, did you have anything else for the people you want to open this episode with, or are we going to walk right into it?
I think we will go straight into the episode. Now, this is your topic. As ever, I don't know what you have. So what do you have for us, Joy?
So I did a little research and today, and for those of you who are sleuths out there who want to find out what day me and Tim record and what day it becomes public, you will find out today is the International Day for Failure.
Okay.
So I always find it very interesting. You know, we have this kind of thing, and I don't know if it's like an American thing or whatever, but we love an underdog, right? We love an underdog. We love these stories. Like I was recently learned about one of the guys who owns Sony now. He, before he became a partner to own Sony, do you know what he did, Tim? He made Sony's first product was rice makers that his exact quote was, it burned more rice than it made. They sold 100 of them and it didn't go anywhere.
Okay.
So what I did was I picked songs about failures.
Oh, okay.
So, with that being said, I have a few little like things that'll remind you guys all, and maybe this is just something near and dear to me because I'm an HR manager who knows that people fail from time to time, and I still think you're great. But these are some non-musical facts that I thought were kind of interesting, and then I have a whole list of like 30 songs about failing, and we'll pick like 10 or whatever and talk about them. So. Number one, guys, if you're ever worried about yourself, just know Michael Jordan missed more than 9,000 shots in his basketball career. Steven Spielberg was rejected from the college of his choice not once, but 3 times. Vincent van Gogh only sold 1 painting his entire lifetime. I thought this was funny. Tim, you'll find this one funny. Actress Elizabeth Taylor was married 8 times to 7 men. 8 times, but to 7 men. Okay. And Axl Rose's marriage to Aaron Everly lasted only 10 months.
Okay. Well, you know, it's hard being a rock and roller and keeping a family environment going.
And last but not least, soap opera actress Susan Lucci was nominated 18 times for a Daytime Emmy and lost each time. She finally won on her 19th time, Tim.
Well, there we are. 19th time is better than none at all.
So anyway, now back to songs. I just thought those were cute, and I want to set it out there. So the first one is a favorite of mine, and I know Tim will instantly know this song. It is about a breakup, a brokenheartedness protagonist. It's a 1980s pop song. It is The Winner Takes All by ABBA.
Oh, absolutely fantastic. Because as you know, they were all married and then they divorced and then they went with the other people and it became a whole Swedish thing where they're all, you know.
Yes, exactly. And so literally the song is about a girl who feels like she's lost everything, you know, and then they divorce and then, yeah. But it became an international hit for them. And I feel like I always love kind of like the intro to The Winner Takes All, Tim. I don't know about you, but I think it has like one of the coolest intros because it's on the Super Trooper album, which is my favorite, but probably besides The Visitors, we've talked about this, but and Voyager was pretty cool too. But 1980 Super Trooper ABBA is probably one of my favorites. But like, which is like, I don't want to talk, you know, and it's got that kind of like intro to it. I think that's one of the. For me, I find what makes an artist, and I've said this many times on this podcast, and people will agree or disagree, but like when I talk about like ABBA or I talk about Elton John or I talk about Michael Jackson, each one of their songs is like a masterpiece in and of itself. It works independently so well. It has like different parts, right? And if you can do that consistently, and it can be different genres, different sounds, you can play around. I think that's what makes the difference. And we've talked about, me and Tim have both kind of made that joke about certain bands or radio filler. And those are the ones that we don't really, we're not insulting them, but I think what makes a star and a superstar is that ability to have that very difference. And I think Winner Takes All is a great example of ABBA doing that.
Well, yeah, because I mean, you have the classic Benny and Bjorn songwriting. I mean, they are musical geniuses, them two. And you know, the light and the shade, the like you say, everything about that songwriting process with ABBA is just amazing.
It's a I would be really interested. It would have been super cool at some point in your life to be, because first of all, they all hated each other at some point, exactly like me and Tim were saying. I mean, them and like 90% of every other artist who said they wouldn't get together unless hell freezes over. But
Sure.
With that being said, it would have been super cool to kind of be like a fly on the wall to their, it's got to, I don't know, everything about them. They do such a good job of like, it's ABBA, but every song is like a masterpiece in and of itself. They take it from beginning to end and make it almost like a story in each song.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, for many people, ABBA is throwaway pop, but like you say, all those songs are so well done.
And see, that's what's sad to me, because if you think of it, if you can hear ABBA and hear throwaway pop, that means you're not actually listening, because yes, I mean, Dancing Queen may be considered throwaway pop, and I could care less to ever hear that song again, right? Mm-hmm. But they have so much other music that, like, it would be crazy for me, I don't know, Tim, I could never in a million years hear, like, I don't know, every song, Fernando, Waterloo, SOS, Super Trooper, and not think that those are all masterpieces in and of themselves.
No, and even the new songs that they came out with on that new album were equally good.
It was, and the whole concept was cool, and it was unique and different, and very like we talked about, they did the whole Spanish thing for a while. And Does Your Mother Know is a masterpiece.
It is, and the live version of ABBA Live is great because it has a twin guitar thing with the two guitar players in the band. It is super cool.
Yeah, I could hear that. That's what it is, though, is I think that everything about them is just kind of cool. I don't know. But there's my first song. So the next song is another one that's kind of like, Tim will definitely know. There's multiple versions of this song. The original is by Bobby Fuller. And then you've got The Clash, and it's I Fought the Law, because it's literally about fighting the law and losing. So you failed.
Yeah, I fought the law and the law won. Yeah. And the funny thing about this is a lot of people don't realize it's a cover version. I think the Clash version is so definitive. People don't know it's that Bobby Fuller cover.
Well, I will say I prefer the Clash version. Sorry, Bobby Fuller, but I do. I mean, we always, you joke about how people like always assume the original is the best. But if I'm listening to the song, I'm probably going to listen to the Clash version.
Sure.
And it's really a song about a guy who fought the law and lost. Apparently, it's about a guy on a chain gang. That's what Bobby Fuller originally wrote it about, was some guy who was working for a chain gang. I didn't know that. And he said that Bobby Fuller said that he heard like a guy who was on a chain gang, like there's like back in the day, and he was singing, I fought the law and the law won, while he was working on the chain gang. And that's how the song got written.
There we are. I didn't know that.
I thought that was cool. Like, I didn't know it either. So I was doing the research for this episode. And I was like, it makes sense, though. I mean, I guess if you're working for a chain gang, the law won. I don't know. I thought The Clash is one of those bands that I like them, but I really feel like I need to get past the surface level with them as a band.
Well, do you know what's funny? I was in a thrift shop that had almost the entire Clash discography for sale, and I bought all the albums. I mean, I'm probably missing a few, but there was 10 or 12. There was live albums and a box set, and I just bought the lot because it was not that expensive.
Yeah.
And I think it's fair to say I am not a Clash fan at all. I like the hits. And I Rock the Casbah, this song, should I stay or should I go? All that stuff's great stuff. But delving into these albums is just kind of meh for me. And I mean, a lot of people love The Clash. And if you love The Clash, enjoy it. But I don't know, digging into those albums, I didn't find anything that I was particularly missing in my life.
See, I get that. I can see, like, outside of like London Calling, I Fought the Law, Rock the Casbah, Should I Stay or Should I Go? I don't know a whole lot. And maybe it kind of goes back to what I was just saying about, I felt like some of their music could end up being radio filler. But to their credit, I have not done enough research to confirm or deny that.
Sure. The only thing I do know about The Clash is Joe Strummer had a solo project called Joe Strummer and the Mescaleros. And my friend John Blackburn, who I played in a band called Tag, was his bass player for a period of time.
Oh, I mean, I didn't know that either, but good to know, Tim. That's funny. Now, the next song, Tim, is a song that I absolutely love. It is probably if I had to pick top 10 songs that I think are great hits, this one is The Lonesome Liver, really, everybody? The Lonesome Loser by the Little River Band. I mixed Loser and Little River Band together. If you guys don't get how liver came out of my, it doesn't matter. Anyway, Lonesome Loser by the Little River Band. I love this song.
Yeah, this is a great song. I mean, it's one that you hear around. I can't say I've heard it for a while, but I've definitely heard it, many times.
What I like about it is that intro when he's like, "Have you heard about the lonesome loser?" And it's like there's like a breakdown between when the music starts playing to the actual song. Mm-hmm. I don't know why, but I really like that intro. I literally don't know anything else about the Little River Band. Do you, Tim? Do they have any other songs? I really don't.
I don't know. I think they come from where there's a small tributary.
Like, I can't tell you any other song, but I can say, and it kind of goes into like, I grew up a little bit on that kind of CCR kind of sound. Mm-hmm. Like that kind of song is really like something that my ear will gravitate towards or like it. But I do like that opening where he's just like, there's like no music and he's just kind of singing it. And then the guitar kind of gradually comes towards you. Mm-hmm. And then there's like a breakdown in the middle with that beat. It's just some really cool song. And I mean, in this song, he's have you heard about the lonesome loser beaten by the Queen of Hearts every time? So it is about kind of being a failure, but he keeps trying. That's what they're saying.
Yeah. And like you say, it does have a sort of CCR vibe about it.
Yeah. I mean, the Little River Band gives that kind of, and I don't know that they would have been popular in the UK. I feel like it was a band that was popular in America. I don't imagine that transcending as well.
No, not really. I mean, a lot of this sort of music of that style, there were people love it or have loved it, but it certainly wasn't mainstream.
I will say, I think they're Australian, though, originally. I could be wrong. If I have Australian listeners and that's completely wrong, don't come for me, internet. But I think they're Australian, but I think they were popular.
Well, let's have a look. Anyway.
Oh my God, he's giving it a Google Live on air, everybody.
If I made that up. A rock band formed in Melbourne, Australia in March 1975.
Okay, then the internet doesn't have to come for me.
The internet can finally stay away from you.
I was like, I felt like I made that up, but I could be wrong. Anyway, or could be right. But I love that song. I like the little, I mean, it's very catchy 1970s rock music. It's all it comes down to, Tim.
Yeah, absolutely.
That sound was super popular. All right. So the next one is a song that me and Tim and an artist that we both love. It is Kenny Rogers and is The Gambler.
Oh, I love this song. I mean, the original version of it off the album, The Gambler, which is the definitive version, is great. And I mean, he gives you all that advice about gambling. He said you should know when to hold them and you should know when to fold them. You know when to walk away and you know when to run. And you should never count your money when you're sitting at the table. There's time enough for counting when the dealing's done. So really, that's life advice if you want to get into the gambling realm.
Exactly. And it's literally just a song about, I think, a guy who may have had an alcohol addiction, who was like, if I give you this advice, can I have your alcohol? But with that being said, I love Kenny Rogers. That's my first thing. Me and Tim are both Kenny Rogers and Dolly's fans through and through. But I feel like this song is a song that plays in my house once a week, at least. I
should say that. And I take it, have you seen the version on the Muppets?
Yes, absolutely. And it's amazing. I've seen so many versions of this song, including the Muppets version. But Kenny Rogers is one of those people that, like, if someone said, I don't really care for Kenny Rogers, I'd probably like lift my eyebrow up a little and be like, who doesn't like The Gambler? Like, yeah, I've never heard anybody say that.
I mean, the whole album of The Gambler is pretty strong. But I said, going back to the Muppets now.
Oh, sorry, I moved away from that.
Yeah, because I wanted to a piece of advice. Go on YouTube, look up Kenny Rogers, The Gambler on the Muppet Show. Now, this would never, ever fly now on what's essentially kids' TV.
Yeah, really. He looks like, and he's wearing, like, at one point, one of the Muppets is wearing what kind of looks like like a headdress or something.
Yeah, and
very weird.
Yeah, and the Muppets have legs.
Yeah.
And then even the lyrics about bumming a cigarette and drinking and stuff. I mean, that's never going to fly on kids' TV now.
You literally says, if I tell you this, could I have the rest of your alcohol or whatever?
Yeah, and there's like a dream sequence and people are dying on the little train carriage that he's on. It's an eye-opener into 70s TV. It really is.
So I was at, so my friend Molly, who I talked about on the episode, Tim has talked about, I always joke about the time when Tim was on the bus and they ran into the bridge and all the stuff fell on the kids, how everybody would be sued nowadays if that happens. Mm-hmm. Well, on Molly's episode, I talked about my version of that where I fell down a hill and a professor was going to leave me on the side of the mountain at 16 years old. And me and Molly and her mom, so Molly's birthday just passed, were together this past weekend. And we were talking about this. And that's what we said. We were like, there's literally no way. Like, I was at the cusp of when that could have flew. But if that happened now, everyone would have sued.
Like I said on Molly's episode, they would have sent a helicopter now.
Yeah, it's just crazy. But anyway, so that's a great one. We all love some Kenny Rogers. Okay. So this one goes back to my Nick Carter concert, who Don Henley's guitar, we were talking guitar, not his guitar, his guitarist was playing with Nick Carter. And this song played and I loved it. Kick 'em when you're up, kick 'em when you're down. It was Dirty Laundry by Don Henley.
Yeah, that's a great song. I think is it on the album End of the Innocence? I think.
Hold on one second. I think I have it here. I want to say it is. I do know that the Nickelback did a version of it.
Oh, really?
Have you ever heard that, Tim?
No, I need to check that out.
Please. Yeah. So it was in 1982. So I think you're right. That sounds about like the right album. And yeah, in 2016, Nickelback did a version of Dirty Laundry.
I love that. And as you know, I like Nickelback sort of ironically, but not. I do like some of their songs. I know that you don't really care for Nickelback, but I'm going to have to find that.
I want you to find it. I want to hear next time we record, Tim, give us your analysis of kick 'em when you're up, kick 'em when you're down. So when Nick Carter was talking about, he's like, I think he had a lot to say because the song is about someone complaining about, all the news cycles and so for those who don't know, he's talking about there's like all the 24-hour news and like all this garbage that's filling us, right? And how we kick them when they're up and we kick them when they're down. It's kind of like a tabloid style. It has that intro. And, people losing their homes, their reputations. But what's interesting is there's little sound bites in the original where it's like tabloid news and stuff. Mm-hmm. And, in the article I was reading about songs about losers, he's like, who's really the loser here? It's up for debate, but it was just kind of, it's funny because he said when Nick Carter was singing it, he did a really good job, by the way. When he opened, he was wearing like this very white, I almost want to say Billy Joel kind of suit. He had a pink undershirt, a bright tie. He wore sunglasses when he was like during different parts. He said, Don Henley, you guys ever heard of, which I will say, Tim, I had to stop myself a few times because it was so ridiculous. He'd go, have you ever heard of this song? And then play every song that you've ever heard ever. And I'm like, no, I don't live under a rock.
Well, you think if there's some very young people there, they might not even know who Don Henley is.
I know, but it was this song specifically. But no, that was just like, I was like, Yes, I have heard You Shook Me All Night Long by AC/DC and 90% of the planet. But you know what I'm saying? It was just funny a few times. So he said it. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't live under a rock. But with that being said, he did talk about, he's like, I felt like Don Henley had a lot to say about this. And then he went into it. And I thought it was really interesting. He said that, though, because I have to wonder. So for those who don't know, Nick Carter's brother, Aaron Carter, recently passed away due to substance abuse issues. Mm-hmm. And I felt like that played into a little bit about what he's talking about, because Aaron Carter had gotten a lot of bad press and things he was saying and doing. And I felt like there's a really negative incantation towards him towards the end. And I wondered if that played into this. And there was a few little moments where he talked about, I've been going through a lot. And you knew he was talking about his brother. Mm-hmm. Because it was not been that long since Nick Carter passed away. I mean, I'm sorry, Aaron Carter. Do not quote me on that. Nick Carter's still alive, everybody. Aaron Carter passed away. But with that being said, it's still a cool song. I don't know if I thought they said it's about being a loser or like failing. I don't know if I think it's about failing. This song was a little bit of a kind of on the topic, Tim, so don't judge me on it.
No, it's still a good song to talk about, and I've since learned that about the Nickelback cover. I just added it to the Spotify, so as soon as we wrap this, I'm going to be having a listen to that.
I want your full analysis on that because it's a lot.
I'll have a full report on your desk in the morning.
All right, so the next song is another one that, I mean, it's iconic, but I'm only happy when it rains by Garbage.
Yes. This is from the very first Garbage album that's just called Garbage. It's the one with the pink cover. And that is such a good song. And I recently purchased, or repurchased, should I say, that first Garbage album. Because, I mean, I've had it digitally and it's on the Spotify and all that kind of stuff. But I remember buying it when it came out. And I was always really liked it. There's some really good songs on that album. But that is, you know, the single. That's the one that people remember.
Yeah, I'm not like, let's be honest, I'm not like a big fan of Garbage. I know who they are. Almost ironically, like you were kind of making a joke about Nickelback in some ways. But that song I always find very interesting. And maybe it's just me, but, you know, she's talking about pour your misery down in the chorus or whatever. She says that a few times. It's one of those great songs that does a great job of sounding happy when it isn't.
Yes.
It has that dichotomy or that juxtaposition of a song that sounds like one thing, but it's something. I only smile in the dark is like one of the lyrics of the songs. And so like but you just hear that, I'm only happy when it rains. Yeah, that sounds fun. It sounds kind of upbeat, but if you really listen to it, it's quite a dark song.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of that song. It's very poppy and upbeat, but she's singing a very down lyric. The other interesting thing about Garbage is the drummer in that band was Butch Vig. And Butch Vig famously produced Nirvana's Nevermind.
Oh, I think I've heard that before, but I don't know that I put them together. Now, the main singer, I know they're married, but isn't the main singer, her name is Shirley
Manson.
She's Scottish, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, but most of them are American, I think. I could be wrong. I don't know a whole lot about them, but I will say that song kind of is one of those ones that sticks with me. I hear that intro in my sleep, basically, at this point. So, yeah,
the other tracks on there are pretty good too. I mean, opens with that song "Queer," which is good. Super Vixen is a great song. Another one, Stupid Girl. That was another song that was a hit.
Oh, I completely forgot about Stupid Girl. That's one that I love. Like, I literally have listened to that 1,000 times and it didn't even register with me. I mean, I kind of associate her with like a Susie Six kind of thing. Like, she got those vibes going on, which I love. But yeah, I don't know. Once again, this might be creative liberties because it's kind of hard to find songs all about failing. But I feel like if you're only happy when it rains, maybe you're struggling a little. But, you know, it's like pour your misery down on me sounds pretty negative. But I will say that is one of the most catchy songs. Also, maybe they didn't have to make too many more hits because I feel like I've heard that song in like TV shows and movies. Anytime you want to give the punk rock sound kind of thing going on.
Well, I remember buying their album, the follow-up album to that, which is called Garbage 2.0. And that had a couple of good tracks on it, but I was disappointed because I liked the first Garbage album so much.
Didn't live up to it. That makes sense. All right. Well, speaking of songs of failure, it's a weird kind of segue, but Tim will be familiar. Well, I'm thinking Tim will be familiar with this song. I don't know how much of our artists will be our artists. Yes, you guys are all artists to me. Our listeners will be familiar with this song. But early 60s, the Beatles, and is I Am a Loser.
Yes, I know that. I think that's from, I forget, it's like, if it's not Hard Day's Night, it's that kind of era.
Yes. It was from 1964. Let's just look it up because I don't have it here, but I know it's from 1964. So I know you're right on the money. I'm a Loser, the Beatles. Let's tell everybody. Hold on. I'm sure I saw it when I was researching it, but I don't remember it off the top of my head.
What does your Goog tell you?
Beatles for Sale.
There we go. It was an early album. It certainly wasn't later era. It's very early era of Beatles.
So, but there is a caveat to that. It's apparently it was originally intended for the album Beatles for Sale. And on some albums you can find it. And on some albums it's been swapped for the song I Feel Fine.
Well, the thing is, you have to remember with the Beatles, in the United States, until you got about halfway through their career, the albums were completely different. Like in the US, they were released on Capitol Records, and in the UK, they were released on Parlophone EMI. So at this point, the Parlophone EMI UK releases are what's considered the definitive Beatles albums. But certainly back in the 60s, they were releasing all these weird albums that had bits and pieces of various albums and calling them something different and releasing them to the US market.
It's so interesting to me because that's kind of what happened a little bit with Harry Potter, too. I know that's completely random, but the reason I say that is because there's two different pressings. They're not pressings. Joy, two different. We're not talking about albums. We're talking about books. But you guys, I've recorded for too long. I've lost my mind. So with that being said, there's two different books. And so with Harry Potter, there's the English version and then there's the American version. And I was kind of very pickish about this. And I went through and I bought the English version. Even though I was in France, I bought the UK version and I have the American version. And they're just very interesting because, you've got the Philosopher's Stone versus the Sorcerer's Stone, and the wording and the verbiage and stuff and different parts of it are quite different.
Yeah, and also with the audiobooks, the UK audiobooks are performed by Stephen Fry, and then in the US it's someone completely different. And he was in Carry On films, but I can't remember his name. But he narrates the US version, and trying to get hold of the UK ones for a while was difficult.
And I will say the UK people are a step above us. The language, there's some stuff I feel like in the UK versions that they say would not fly in the American versions.
That's because we're prudes here in the good old US of A.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Go back to listen to me and Tim's Super Bowl episode. You'll hear all about that. We went into detail about that. But yes, it was just interesting to me. I thought it was super cool, Tim, because I happened to be, when I was in France, I saw a copy of it in a bookstore that I was in, and it was the UK version. So I picked it all up, and now I've went back and forth and compared. It's super cool. The artwork's different. The verbiage is different. The stories are basically the same, to their core, but it's just interesting to see all the linguistic differences and things like that.
Sure.
So anyway, all right. So for those who don't know, the song I'm a Loser by the Beatles is basically about a guy who lost a girl, like every Beatles song when they first started. I feel like all their songs at the beginning were about girls, Tim.
Sure, they were just dudes. They were just Northerners. I mean, what else did they have to sing about?
Exactly. So the next one is "The Boxer" by Simon and Garfunkel. Are you familiar with this song, Tim?
I am indeed. It came up recently on my 1001 albums challenge. That song.
Well, then you probably have a lot to say. I mean, it's literally about a guy who's a boxer. So basically it tells his life story. The boxer kind of serves as a metaphor for failure, I would imagine. But he's just a catchy ballad. I would say Simon and Garfunkel are one of those bands that if I'm in the mood for them, I really like them. But some days they're not there for me. They're very specific mood for me.
Yeah, I mean, I like some of the Paul Simon stuff after Simon and Garfunkel. I know, like his album Graceland is an absolute masterpiece, and especially where he's bringing in all those African sounds and African rhythms into that, and African musicians. It's a real fabulous thing. He did a lot for world music just with that album. But yeah, I think you're right. Early Simon and Garfunkel, yeah. It's like you have to be in the right frame of mind for it.
I will say, when I think of Paul Simon, the only thing that comes to mind is "You Can Call Me Owl." Owl. He's an owl, everybody. Owl.
Yes, I believe that to be the case.
I've lost it, Tim. He is not an owl, everyone. His name is Owl. A-L. And because of pop-up music video. VH1, I've said it many times on this episode. For some reason, they love that episode. I've literally lost it. They love that video. People are like, have they lost their minds? They don't realize it's now almost 11 o'clock at night for us. It's not, it's 10 o'clock. But anyway, but that video was one of the ones that just played all the time on VH1 when I was a kid. And so when I think of Paul Simon, that is the first song that comes to mind. The Mama Bongos.
Yeah, because it's iconic because it has Chevy Chase
in it. Yeah, and they're literally like he's like, and then you've got bongos playing. Like it's just an iconic song. So when I think of Paul Simon, that is literally the first song that comes to mind.
Yeah, when I think of Paul Simon, I think about the fact he resents the fact that Art Garfunkel was his partner after he worked out he could sing his own songs.
I mean, that's fair, but gosh, I guess I never really realized this, but it says they formed Simon and Garfunkel in 1957. Good Lord.
What a long career. And I mean, as I said, the reason they was a partnership is Paul Simon wrote all these songs and he played guitar, but he didn't have the confidence to sing his own songs. But whereas Art Garfunkel was an accomplished singer. So they had that duet thing going for a while. Then one day Paul Simon woke up and was like, hang on a minute, why do I need this guy? I can sing these songs now.
Yeah. But I mean, I will say Garfunkel was a better singer. Let's be honest. Like vocally wise, he was the better singer. But
sure, and he's in an episode of Flight of the Conchords,
which is really all that matters, everybody. But what was interesting because it really was just their voices, good harmonies, and acoustic guitar back in the day, right?
Sure.
But I don't know. Art Garfunkel, I would say he was the better singer. Paul Simon, though, great songwriter. Just fantastic songwriter.
I mean, Art Garfunkel has probably written some songs. I think that Bright Eyes song, I think he wrote. But I mean, you look at the catalogs of those two. I mean, Paul Simon's songwriting is just like head and shoulders above anything Art Garfunkel would ever do.
You know, I'm literally losing it, Tim, because we've been recording. Because as soon as you said head and shoulders, my brain went head, shoulders, these are not related to anything in this podcast. But anyway, all right. So this might be a little bit of a throwback to something we said earlier, Tim. But if it's an episode about failures and losing and all these things, I couldn't leave it out. I can't hear this song ever again, thanks to Tim and myself. But it is Radiohead Creep. So for those who don't know, Tim did a version of it on his YouTube channel. You can go find it. It doesn't matter. But I sang the song and we kind of played around with different keys. Tim liked the version where I went for a higher key and then it was like a lower key at the beginning. But moral story is I sang the song to a click track so many times. If I ever hear it again, my eye starts to twitch. But it is a song about being a loser.
For you, it must be like that song that I Will Never Speak Of by Guns N' Roses.
I think the problem is me and Tim had artistic differences on how it should be sang. Tim liked the version, but he liked it better when I did it a certain way. So he was like, go back and do that one. And we're going to use that one, which in Tim's mind was one take. It was not one take, everybody. I recorded it like 74 times that night before I sent it to him, which I know you've done. You know what I'm talking about, Tim, where you've re-recorded and then you finally send the person you're working with the version you like the best. You know what I'm talking about. Sure. I can hear it now, but for a while, I could never hear Radiohead's Creep.
Yeah, you just burn it out in your brain. That's the problem.
It is. It's a great song, though. Like, it's a beautiful song. And our listener from Australia, Megan, she was talking to me. She was like, you have a beautiful vibrato in your voice when we're hitting, when you're hitting those notes. We were writing back and forth one day. And it's really cool to see that because, like, I don't really put out much music like Tim does. So that was a super cool interaction that wouldn't have happened if we did that, if we hadn't did that. So that was cool. And a few people from the Freak Jam wrote me and were like, this is great. We love it. But, yeah, it went down there. And now I always understand, you hear these artists. Like, I remember, I don't know, there's just different artists who are like, I never want to play that song again. You know why?
Yeah, well, we should do another song soon and maybe pick a song that you're already burnt out on. So you don't have to worry about it. I don't know.
No, it wasn't. I can hear it now, Tim. But there was about a 6-month. It's like when I went to the I was just telling my friend Whitney about this when we were driving back and forth to the Nick Carter concert. When I went to the Women's March on Washington, there was a whole thing where me and my friend Molly went. You guys know Molly now? Well, we never got to eat that entire day. We ended up walking like, I don't know, like 57 miles, and we didn't get a proper meal. So, but we made sure to pack snacks. And the reason we didn't get a proper meal was there were so many people there, and it was all backed up, and it was just like a thing. You couldn't get anywhere. Mm-hmm. I mean, you got Madonna screaming on stage. I got to see all kinds of cool stuff happen in real life, right? You know what I mean? The Women's March had so many cool people. And I still remember to this day when, I don't want to say it on the podcast, but Madonna was talking about doing things to the White House. But I don't want to get me a Tim's podcast. I could hear her yelling, but I was so close to everyone that I couldn't move. Like, I could hear Madonna, but I couldn't see anything because we were stuck in crowds. So anyway, but it was a cool experience. I loved it. But there were so many people there, and we had packed snacks, me and Molly had, and we ate Cliff Bars mostly, Tim, throughout the day. Like the Cliff Bars, I could not eat another Cliff Bar for at least a year. And Molly said the same thing because we kept saying, okay, when we're walking back to the bus, we're going to stop to get food. But the bus driver threatened us and said, if we don't get back to the bus on time, they're going to leave us. So we got nervous every time we stopped to get food because the line was so long. So we just kept going. We finally get back to the bus, and it was like 12 miles of walking, I want you to know, back to the bus. And it was 12 miles there. And we get back to the bus, Tim, I kid you not, we sat in that parking lot for 3 hours. He wasn't leaving us. He couldn't go anywhere. So there was too many other buses. But we literally didn't eat. And then every hour on the hour, we woke up whenever they were going to, like, we stopped at like a rest stop. We were like, there's got to be a snack machine here. They were all closed. We were convinced when we got back to home, we were going to go to like McDonald's or something, right? Like, we're going to go home. It was like 3 a.m. when we got back from Washington, D.C. We got this. We get in my car and we go, we're just going to go to sleep, aren't we? Yes. But then we went home. Molly fell asleep on my couch. I went to my bed. We woke up at like 5 a.m. We got in my car and we drove to Waffle House and ate the biggest breakfast you've ever seen. But it's kind of like that. Like, for a year, I could never eat another Cliff Bar. But anyway, the only song that I can say I will never, ever, ever, and I'm going to say it on this podcast, and I don't know if I've ever said the words, Tim. It doesn't matter how much I've heard it, how long it's been. I can never hear Sweet Home Alabama again.
I'm with you. There's what you call in music the confectionery section. The two big sweets, the home and the child, neither of which you never, ever need to hear again.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And Tim and me have talked about this. Yes, Joy. The chord progression in that song is so... Tim probably knows what it is off the top of your head, don't you?
D, C, and G all the way through.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same. It's every person who has ever learned to play any instrument whatsoever, that's one of the first songs they can easily pull off.
Yep.
It's just the truth. And to their credit, I mean, you have to do that. Like, that's how you learn, right, Tim? It's not their fault. But at some point, when you're around a lot of musicians and singers and stuff, on top of, like, that's just, you're just like, I can't. I've told you guys, I was in a show choir for years, and every male, specifically men, with a guitar, that would be the first, if not the second or third song in Southwest Virginia they learned, Tim. Yeah,
because it's all simple chords. You don't have to bring that F chord in. It's very easy to play. And, of course, everyone knows it, which is why they're probably playing it.
Yeah, but anyway, all right. So moving along, we really didn't talk anything about it, but it's a good song. I like Radiohead Creep. That's why me and Tim picked it to sing together. It was a fun one. But another one that I grew up on, and this is a band I saw live, and I love this concert. This is The Offspring, and The Kids Aren't All Right.
Yeah, which is a play on the Who song, The Kids Are All Right.
Exactly. Tim, so you knew exactly where I was going with that. So for those who don't know, this is from Americana, which is from 1998, which was one of the very first albums I probably owned. Mm-hmm. I love that album. I lived, breathed, eat like The Offspring. And ironically, I tried to see them 3 times. They had been in different concert venues, like group kind of things, and they always backed out. Something would always happen. I finally got to see them 2 years ago, and it was one of my favorite concerts. I feel like The Offspring is an underrated kind of pop punk band because they had hit after hit after hit significantly from the late 80s, actually, all the way up until 2000s till now. They're still touring. Consecutively, they're a band that I could think of that has had a hit after hit after hit. Now, The Kids Aren't All Right, I think, was kind of it is kind of like a melodrama in a sense. It's talking about like an area in America where kids have like drugs and like bad parents and things happening. And it was really kind of hitting to that cusp. Youth unemployment, no future. But if you've never heard it, I would highly suggest listening to it because it's an interesting listen. And The Offspring, though, I would say of all bands that I absolutely adore is probably the most, I feel like people know them, but they literally know like 2 songs and they've had hit after hit for like years.
Yeah, I'd imagine people just know Pretty Fly for a White Guy and probably this song.
I will say, I always think of, he drew a 31, he drew a 1-3, but they drew a 31, like the tattoo is about 13 versus 31. That goes through my head a lot. And when I used to go roller skating, yes, I know this is weird to everybody out there because I sound like the most uncoordinated person in the world, but both me and my twin sister were actually amazing at roller skating. I don't know how. If you put wheels on my feet, somehow I was good at it. It doesn't matter. But I think it's because it was a skill I learned young. You know how, Tim, when you learn something young,
Sure.
But with that being said, that song played all the time. Pretty Fly for a White Guy played nonstop at the roller skating rinks. So it is iconic for me.
I've never been to a roller skating rink.
I tried to go as an adult and realized I lost every skill I had as a kid, and that lasted for about 5 minutes. So
yeah, I think at this point I wouldn't let you go to a roller skating rink even if you wanted to.
I will, Tim, just tell me we're getting close to the end of the episode, but I've got quite a few more songs. The next one is a song that's very specific for my UK people, aka and a lot of people who listen to this podcast and what Tim was, but not so much anymore. It's Joy Division, which is a very UK band. Love Will Tear Us Apart.
Yeah. Joy Division that then sort of morphed into New Order.
I don't know very much about them besides they were famous in Britain and had like 5 songs. And if I'm being completely transparent with you, I know the Cure version of Love Will Tear Us Apart more than I do the Joy Division one.
Yeah. I think that's probably the version that most people would know.
I feel like, okay, the internet is going to be upset with me. So the song is about Ian Curtis's, which is the lead singer's marital problems and struggles with epilepsy, which I thought was kind of interesting. I didn't know that. I have one issue with Joy Division, Tim, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. I have no clue what they're saying. And any of the versions, it just sounds like mumbling to me.
It was that time when that was, I think it was Ian.
But that was even, for some reason, theirs is worse. I don't know how to explain it. I tried to listen to it 3 different times before the episode, and I was like, I don't know what they're saying. Well, they're saying words, but I don't hear them.
Well, at least it's not like Napalm Death. Are you familiar with Napalm Death?
Yes.
It's a speed metal band that's British from the north of England that utilize a technique called gruff vocals. Now, if you look in there in the little book that comes with the record, they'll have all this imagery and story and all this kind of stuff. And they're famous for songs that last, a minute, and really fast, but like for a minute. But the vocals go, ooh, ooh, oh, ooh, like that all the way through.
That's all you hear. I've only heard them kind of like people have talked about them, so I've looked them up. I have no idea. I mean, I think the Cure version, I can understand it a little bit more, maybe. But it almost sounds like, to me, I sound so old. Like, I can't understand those rock music people, even though we're literally talking about from 1980. But with that being said, it sounds like to me they didn't do a proper sound check. Like the artist, like the reverb for the guitar and then like the drums is so freaking loud that and then the guy's just like, that's what it sounds like. And I can tell you right now, Joy Division was not a band that really transcend into America. I know about them, but not very many Americans do.
As I said, I think when they became New Order or sort of morphed into New Order, I think they were a lot more popular and they had a lot more hits, especially the song Blue Monday, which is very famous. Still the best-selling 12-inch single of all time.
I will say that is probably, I know that song very well. And I can understand the words. But that makes me sound bad. And I don't mean because they have a UK accent. I mean, it sounds like they didn't do a sound check before they recorded it. And in my defense, Tim, I listened to 3 different versions. I was trying to be like, okay, well, maybe this is a bad recording. No, this is just how they sound. That's just the sound they were going for. Okay, well, anyway.
Well, there we are. Well, why don't you do one, maybe 2 more?
Well, I have 2 more, so we're right on the money. This one is one that was not a song, but was a song, but was not a song, and you'll know what I mean. I've heard this song many times. I think we talked about it on the podcast. It is Teenage Dirtbag by Wheatus.
Yes, I've played this song many times. There was a period of time when every cover band was playing Teenage Dirtbag, and it's got some interesting parts in it. That boom, ba, boom, ba, boom, ba, boom, ba. And I thought of it about 3 or 4 months ago, see if I could still remember how to play it. And I can still remember how to play the whole song.
I mean, just listening to it, it doesn't seem like a super complicated song, but it was written for that. What was it? American Pie, the movie?
I think it was on that soundtrack. Yeah.
But it wasn't a song. So we just wasn't real band from what I understand. So I watched a whole big thing. And so it was the #1 track in Australia, Ireland, Germany, the UK, but it wasn't in America. And basically, for what I understand is they put it in I'm just a teenage. Yeah. So basically he was like, I'm just a teenage dirtbag. And they put it in the movie and that's how it became a hit in America. But it was a common misconception. At some point, people thought that it wasn't a song. It was written for the movie and only the movie, but it wasn't. He said they were popular internationally, but the only way they could get their foot in the door in America, and I don't want to say this as an American, but as an artist, a recording artist, America's where you want to that's where you make your money, right?
Sure.
Was to put it in the movie. And then they became famous for it. And I will say, to their credit, I had never heard this song, Tim. And I always give Charlie a hard time because my husband does not know. You could literally sing a song he just listened to and he would not have any clue who sang it. And he finds it funny because I'll be like, that's da-da-da-da-da off the top of my head. But me and Tim were just talking about that. I say all that stuff all the time. And he doesn't know. But Teenage Dirtbag, Charlie introduced me to it because he liked that movie. And one day he started playing it, never heard it, wouldn't know it existed. Not a clue.
Yeah, I just remember it's sort of the late night. When did that come out? 90 something?
Probably. Let's see. It was released in 2000.
Oh, okay. So yeah, 2000. But I remember it all the cover bands were playing. We didn't play it in Rough Justice and we didn't play it in Moroccan Soul, but bands I was in and around that time, they were playing Teenage Dirtbag, and it was a big thing at the jam nights at the time. People were playing that, and yeah, I was pleased I had that sense memory of remembering how to play it.
That's so funny, though, because like I say, it's funny. Every once in a while, Charlie will do this. He'll come up with a song I've never heard of. And I can say with full 100% honesty, I didn't know that song existed. And then one day he started playing. He was like, oh, yeah, it was in this movie. I don't know if it was American Pie. Don't quote me out. But one of those early 2000 movies. And I watched a Vice documentary on the guy who did it, Wheatus. If you go look it up, he talks about that. Everybody just said that, it was a song made for a movie. But no, they had been popular everywhere but America before the movie came out.
Yeah, and then they released a follow-up. They did a cover of Erasure's Respect.
Yeah, I've heard that too. And it was actually pretty good. I mean, I don't know if I'd go out of my way to hear it.
It's a good cover.
Yeah. So anyway, there you go. Wheatus. And I mean, for those who don't know why it's about failing, he goes, I'm just a teenage dirtbag. Yeah. 37 times. And it's funny though, Tim. My favorite was, so I know you're not on TikTok, but there was a TikTok trend with modern day kids putting their teenage dirtbag photos. Those photos when you look back and you're like, oh God. I saw one that said, I want to be part of the trend, but all my photos got lost on MySpace, and that's me. I can't access any of my teenage dirtbag photos because they're all on MySpace. I thought that was funny. But anyway, so with that being said, I will end it with this one. And this is Even the Losers Get Lucky Sometimes by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Have you ever heard this song, Tim?
Absolutely. Is this from Damn the Torpedoes?
It absolutely is.
Yeah, which is for many the definitive Tom Petty album. Yeah. In fact, I recorded a cover version of this with my friend Tim Wilson. And if you go on my Tim O'Sullivan Guitarist YouTube page, there's a version of him singing it. And I play all the guitar parts on it.
People are going to start to believe this episode was just made so you can talk about your YouTube channel. But it wasn't. But I love this song. It's from 1979, so it's very early Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, of course. But I like that line where he's like, keep a little bit of pride. They get lucky sometimes. I don't know why, but that little line always sticks in my brain. And like when I'm thinking about people, you know, maybe are a little prideful or something, I think of that little line.
There we are. The songwriting genius there of Mr. Tom Petty.
I don't think anybody would debate that Tom Petty wasn't a good songwriter.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, you know, his solo career, Mudcrutch, and then, you know, later on with the Traveling Wilburys, all fabulous songs that he was a part of.
Yeah, and I mean, he's very cited along people like, you know, Bruce Springsteen, Bob Seger, John Mellencamp. He's in that genre, but he has a very distinct sound. I've heard that he's kind of a jerk in real life. I don't know if that's true, but I have heard he's not a nice. Oh, yeah, that's true. He passed away. We're not going to talk about it, guys. But with that being said, I've heard that he's not a nice person.
Well, I mean, he was a rock and roll superstar, and that's how we'd like to remember him.
I feel like, and here's what I was going to get with that is, I feel like I would come off as the person that people, if I were famous, would think that, because I become, and this, Tim's noticed it, I'm sure you've seen it when we're recording and when we're different people, I can be very extroverted and very over the top and very in your face and very like all these things. But in certain situations, I could shut down very quickly. And I imagine if I were a celebrity and there was a lot of celebrities around me or people trying to talk to me, I would easily be that kind of person where, because I have a face that says I'm mad even when I'm not, I could easily see how I could be misconstrued as a mean person when I'm not at all.
Sure.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And the other thing with celebrities is that, you know, your entire view on them is a 2-minute interaction when they may not be at their best.
That's exactly what it is. And then people write about that and then they post it and then it becomes a whole thing for the rest of their lives. And I can't imagine having that kind of pressure on you at all times, because there are times where I'm just going to be honest with you, I just don't want to be bothered by anybody. And they don't get that choice. They always have to be bothered by somebody.
Yes.
Whether they want to or not.
100%.
And I don't care what anyone says, I Won't Back Down is one of the best songs ever written of all time.
Well, so's Free Falling, and so's Mary Jane's The Last Dance.
I still say I Won't Back Down is probably my favorite, though, Tim. Also, for those who don't know, his middle name was Earl. I learned that recently.
There you go.
Thomas Earl Petty. And he died in 2017. By the way, everybody, I did know that. But sadly, and we talked about him on the episode of Molly's episode. That is one artist I associate with my best friend, because as anyone I've ever met, she has been a Tom Petty fan through and through since the beginning.
Yes. Yeah. And she spoke of that extensively on her episode. Yep. And if you haven't heard the episode with Molly, go back and have a listen to it.
I might be promoting her a little bit because I think she's fantastic, but you should go listen to that episode. All right, Tim, we have anything else for the people?
I would say check out the Van Halen remasters on the Spotify or however you get music, or if you want to invest $200 and buy all the box sets, I would recommend doing that too. And as ever, just be super kind to everyone you meet. And if you like Nickelback, I'm not judging you. It's fine. Keep liking them. All right, bye. Bye-bye.